welcome to today's On This Day in Tudor History. I'm Claire Ridgway. I'm the author of a few books on Tudor history, including this one, which has served as the inspiration for these daily videos, just bringing you Tudor history events through the year for each day of the year. I'm going to take you back to the reign of King Henry VIII today, for on this day in Tudor history, the 22nd of May 1538, John Forrest, who was a Franciscan friar and who ended up becoming a martyr, was executed at Smithfield for heresy for his allegiance to Rome. Now, very little is known of Forrest's background, but I'm going to tell you what we do know about this man. By 1512, we know that he was a member of the observant Franciscans at Greenwich, and that by the early 1530s, he was well known for his regular preaching at St Paul's Cross. Now, it is often said that he acted as a confessor to Queen Catherine of Aragon, but there actually doesn't seem to be any firm evidence to back up that idea. But he does appear to have been a favourite of King Henry VIII, and he was also a favourite of Thomas Howard, 3rd Duke of Norfolk. However, like a few people, he ended up losing the king's favour when he opposed the king's plans for the great matter, the annulment of his first marriage to Catherine of Aragon, so that he could marry Anne Boleyn. So that's when he lost the king's favour. Now, historian Peter Marshall writes of how his fellow observants, John Lawrence and Richard List, denounced him to Thomas Cromwell for his views on the king's annulment, and that he was exiled by Francis Faber, who was the provincial minister of his order. He was exiled to a religious house in the north of England, which was probably a good move because it kept him out of King Henry VIII's clutches for a while. However, he was back in London by early 1538 and was soon arrested for heresy. If only, John Forrest, you'd stayed in the north of England, you might have been all right. So he was arrested for heresy, and he was accused, Marshall explains, of identifying the Catholic Church of the Creed with the Church of Rome. And according to chronicler Edward Hall, who's actually my favourite Tudor chronicler, you've probably realised that by now, he was also accused of denying the king's supremacy. He was convicted of heresy, and he was ordered to abjure his beliefs in public at St Paul's Cross. And on the 12th of May 1538, he was taken to St Paul's Cross so that he could recant his views. But he refused to do this. So on the 22nd of May 1538, unsurprisingly, he was taken to Smithfield to be executed. There at Smithfield, on this day in history, Hugh Latimer, who was the Bishop of Worcester, and a man who would actually himself be burned at the stake in Mary I's reign, preached a sermon in which he declared John Forrest's errors. So he preached that before Forrest was executed. And Edward Hall describes how Forrest was then hanged in chains by the middle and armholes from the gallows at Smithfield, and that a fire was then lit underneath these gallows. Now, also from the accounts of his execution, we have the account of a wooden statue of St Derfel, which was taken from a site of pilgrimage in North Wales, that apparently was thrown on the fire under the gallows, and it gave extra fuel to the fire. And the burning of John Forrest with this statue was said to be the fulfilment of a prophecy. Apparently, there was a prophecy saying that the image of this saint would one day set a whole forest on fire. And of course, we've got the play on words there with Forrest and John Forrest. So it was said, you know, that his death and this statue being used for fuel, this image, this religious image, you know, fulfilled that prophecy. Now, Edward Hall, the chronicler, doesn't seem to have thought much of this man, but we do have to remember that Edward Hall was writing a chronicle in Henry VIII's reign, and obviously he didn't want to upset the king. For he writes of Forrest's execution that he so unpatiently took his death that no man that ever put his trust in God never so unquietly nor so ungodly ended his life. If men might judge him by his outward man, he appeared to have little knowledge of God and his sincere truth, and less trust in him at his ending. Another Tudor chronicler, another of my favourites, Charles Risley, who was also Windsor Herald, also gives an account of his execution, and in it he states that when Bishop Latimer asked in what state he would die, Forrest replied in a loud voice that if an angel should come down from heaven and show him any other thing than that he had believed all his lifetime past, he would not believe him, and that if his body should be cut joint after joint, or member after member, burnt, hanged, or what pain soever might be done to his body, he would never turn from his old sect of this Bishop of Rome. And Risley records that the Duke of Norfolk, the Duke of Suffolk, the Earls of Sussex and Hertford, the Bishop of London, members of the King's Council, the Mayor of London, the aldermen, the shrews, and 10,000 persons and more were present at his execution. Now, in 1886, John Forrest was beatified by Pope Leo XIII, so he is now known as Blessed John Forrest. So we remember this day, Blessed John Forrest, who died on this day in Tudor history in 1538. Thank you for joining me with this video today. I do hope you're enjoying these daily Tudor events. You can subscribe to the channel by clicking round about there. You can hit the bell to be notified, and if you've enjoyed this talk today, then please do give me a like. Thank you for joining me. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.